Heart. Real people having real conversations about things that matter most to you. I'm Shari Alyse.
I'm Cyrus Webb.
I'm Rich Oceguera.
I'm Patrice Tanaka.
And we are Heart to Heart. Hey guys, hello, welcome everybody to Heart to Heart. I am so thrilled that you are joining us today. Hello Samantha, hello Earl. You guys, not only welcome to Heart, but man, welcome to 2021. You guys, it is so thrilling to be here with you today, coming into your hearts and to your homes. Hello, we're seeing everybody in the chat. I want to remind you that this show has been created for you. Today, we're going to share a little bit of background about how Heart to Heart got started, and then we're going to talk a little bit about current events, and then we'll have a special feature at the end. But for right now, I want you to know how important you are to us. So, why Heart to Heart? Well, it seems like 2020 seems like it was 2 decades ago. But truth be told, it was a turning point for so many of us. For me specifically, it was right after the murder of George Floyd, and a lot of things had been unrooted, right? A lot of things had been unearthed. There were things that came to light. And for me personally, I realized that there was a lot of pain in the world, a lot of trauma in the world, and a lot of conversations that were not happening. And so you're going to meet the brave and courageous soul soon, my co-host in just a minute. But I went to Cyrus Webb, who is now our executive producer and one of our co-hosts, and say, hey, listen, we got to have a show where we're having conversations, where people are talking about the tough stuff, because more than anything, most of us, we're talking and not really listening. And so we created Heart to Heart in order to have these conversations with you, in order to find out what's important to you and what are the things that you want us to talk about. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to the brave and courageous souls of Heart to Heart who are willing to talk about things that may not be comfortable, who are willing to show up fully and authentically and straight from their hearts. Please meet the amazing Cyrus, Rich, and Patrice. Welcome, guys. Welcome, family, to Heart to Heart.
Yay, we're here.
Thank you.
Hello to everybody that's
glad to be
tuning in.
here.
Yes. Hello, everyone that's watching with us live. I'm going to let you know something. This show is all about, as I mentioned before, you. And what we're hoping is that each and every week that you will submit questions and topics that are important to you. You are the 5th co-host of the show. So no matter how much one of us here wants to be the star, I know, Rich. It really is all about you guys. So my wonderful family, my new Heart to Heart family, and our Heart to Heart friends out there. 2020 for a lot of us was challenging. It was eye-opening. It was awakening, right? There was so many things that came with it. And I'm curious for you, I could say for me, I personally found my voice in a different way than I had before. I had resolved is a big word. I had healed a little bit more of my own personal trauma, and being able to do that allowed me to find my voice in activism for others, and allowed me to start using my voice in ways that was important to say things that maybe people didn't agree with, but I felt was really important. And so that was a gift for me that came out of 2020. I'm curious for you, Cyrus, was there anything that you hadn't known about yourself that maybe you found during the last year?
Well, let me first say, I'm glad to be on this journey with you, so with Rich and also Patrice. 2020 was an interesting year, right? I mean, and for me, the biggest challenge was getting to trust self. That was the big thing for me. And so what I found was I was able to tap into the strength that was there, trust it. And so, yeah, that was the big thing for me. And it's been so good to see what's come out of that.
Awesome. Trust. I mean, self-trust. You can't find anything greater or more freeing than that.
Yeah.
Curious for you, Rich. Same question I want to ask you. Was there anything for you that you unearthed, unrooted, uncovered in 2020?
Yes, everything. Part of the year was like kind of being like in a black hole for me, and very confusing and disorienting. And then I started to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And part of this process was re-examining, recreating, rethinking, redoing, like a lot of re's. And out of that, a whole new path forward opened up for me, including being here on Heart to Heart. And I'm coming into this year just with a lot of optimism and hope and inspiration, and committed to visionary change makers having their voice heard in the world. And that wasn't how I started 2020.
I think that was for a lot of us, probably, really in that space. Well, before I ask Patrice the same question, I'd love to ask our viewers the same question. Is there anything that you uncovered about yourself that perhaps you didn't know, something that you discovered that was important to you in 2020? And while you're all sharing with that, I'd love to hear from you, Patrice.
Thank you, Shari. Such a exciting kickoff to the new year by being part of Heart to Heart. And that is one of the good things that happened in 2020 that is resulting in, an exciting start of the new year. I think I've been living my life purpose for the past 18 years. And frankly, that's what I focused on doing in 2020, which was just simply living my life purpose, which is to choose joy, to be mindful of that joy, and to share that joy with others. Very simple 3-part purpose: choose joy, be mindful of it, and share it with others. And that really helped me to make 2020 probably one of the most productive and positive years of my life. So I'm very grateful for all of the experiences and learnings of 2020. And I'm looking forward to 2021 and doing Heart to Heart with all of you heartful people. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. This is going to be an exciting journey for all of us, because I got to be honest with you guys. This is the first time, or the second time, that the 4 of us really have sat together, and we're going to be uncovering more about each other as we go along. And our hope is that you take this ride with us, that you open your hearts with us, because these conversations that we're all going to have, whether it's about 2020, whether it's about, the recent Georgia election, Senate runoff, whether it's about racism or mental illness or depression or same-sex marriage or whatever it is that's important to you to have conversations, we hope and that we're able to have them, and have them in a way that is respectful, have them in a way we're able to hear each other. Because I'm the first, I don't know about you guys, but I'll be the first to say that 2020 was challenging in a way that I found myself in moments, someone who's the joy coach and joy expert, getting angry, which is a normal emotion, of course, but because people weren't seeing my way. And it was something and I wanted to turn myself away from them instead of really digging in and really listening and finding out why, right? Why is it that people feel that way? There's got to be reasons and openings. So my hope is, through this, that we're all able to have these respectful conversations. I'm curious, Rich, your thoughts on people having different viewpoints than yourself, and the ease or the difficulty in being able to have conversations with people that don't necessarily agree with you.
Well, if I'm honest, which I hope that's what this show is all about, I really struggled with, especially on social media, which is where most people are watching us, right? Struggled with seeing people that I know really well, finding out that they have very different views politically or even about wearing a mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the uprising of against racism that took place this year, finding myself speaking about it in ways I never thought I would, being vocal, much like, Shari, you were part of that. It was very uncomfortable and is still uncomfortable, but I think it's possible, and it's necessary for us, no matter what we believe, what version of God we believe in or not, who we are, what part of the country or world we're from. I think it's time to learn how to have civil discourse again. And it's okay to disagree. We don't have to all agree, but I think we can come to some better understandings of our commonalities. And we've veered very far from that in this past year. And I hope now the pendulum can start to swing back. And hopefully this show sparks some of that kind of conversation.
Thank you for that. I think it's important to say that a lot of times we don't have these conversations. I know for myself, it was because I always felt like I didn't know all the facts, like in an intellectual, in a science way, in a historical way. There were conversations that I avoided because I felt like I just didn't know enough. And in that avoidance, though, we're missing out on really, being able to change things and really being able to support people and really being able to heal. And so I think that it's important, as the four of us gather here and our heart-to-heart family friends out here gather, that to say that it's okay to not have to know it all. Speaking from our hearts, that is what is most important. And I think that if we all continue to do that, that is how we're going to uplift, inspire, heal, and transform. Cyrus, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and even with what Rich said, that I myself, one of the things I learned, and I said it to some of my close friends, is that I think 2020 taught me something about others. It was entitled we can be when it comes to something that we want or that we personally feel like. I think, in the mask, I think that's a perfect example of, people feel like, okay, well, this is my body. I can do what I want with my body. Not thinking about you. It's about thinking about other people. I think that was, as someone who wasn't raised that way, to be selfish, and that was interesting for me to notice. But I did have some people who felt that believed that it was an infringement on they really believed it. It wasn't, repeating something someone said. So definitely listening has helped me too, as you were saying, Shari, and understand, okay, well, that's why you feel like I don't agree with it, but I better understand why you feel the way you feel.
Absolutely. And Marina just said that she relates to this, learning about people's true thoughts and stuff, and that she's had to learn to accept the differences. And I think so many of us are on that journey. What do you feel about that, Patrice? Accepting people's differences.
I know. One of the hardest things, but I think necessary, because we can see how polarized our country has become, with people shouting at and not listening to one another. So I think actively listening to hear and to learn, rather than just waiting to speak, and to speak in a kind and loving way. You can pretty much say anything you want. You can speak your truth as long as you do it in a kind and loving way, so someone can actually hear what you're saying. So yeah, I love the idea of heart-to-heart communication. That's the time when we feel fully seen in the world, right? When we are having these deep, authentic heart-to-heart communications. And that is the most exhilarating feeling of being alive. So let's do more of that, and let's learn how to do it in a constructive and loving way.
Thank you. And I think that that's what's going to happen, and what people are going to come to see when you tune in with us each and every week, is that we all come from different backgrounds, as you can see, and we are going to have different thoughts, and we're going to have different opinions. But respect and really listening, again, from the heart, is the way to go. Generally, during you'll start to see in this show that we are going to have what's called a heart-to-heart vault. And in that vault is going to be an opportunity for you to write into our show and let us know what you want us to talk about. But here's the little twist and the fun, exciting part is that the four of us are not going to know what is going to be on the show. And that's why it's evolved, because our producer, Tracy Allen, which shout out to Tracy, thank you so much. She is the only one that's going to know what has come in. And so it really is going to be a great chance for us to engage. Not only that, so, you know, show that we don't always know everything. I know, it's hard. Cyrus?
Totally agree with that. So what we'd like to do, and Mary, you're, I think, going to be the first up with this. In these first episodes, as we are not only allowing the audience to be able to chime in and us getting to know them, they're going to get to know us a little as well. And we're going to kick this off, Shari, this week with you, and diving in a little bit more. And it's interesting to me because I've gotten to know, it seems like forever, a decade we've been friends, and so glad to be on this path with you. I want to just ask you questions, and then we're going to let Patrice and Rich chime in here. Shari, I want to talk about the beginning for you, because you share a lot on social media about your journey. You were a little girl. When you kind of reflect back on that, being that little girl, you have imagined that you would be where you are today?
Wow. I see that picture of me and it makes me emotional, because I honestly didn't know what or where I was going to be at. Well, that's a lie. As a little girl, I had dreams of stardom, and I had dreams of, being a Hollywood actress. And over time, what I came to realize is that all that little girl was wanting was really to just be loved and to be accepted. As you mentioned, I do share on social media a lot about my journey, and, being sexually traumatized, molested at 7 years old can really change that for you, can really change the trajectory of your life. And what I found at that age was that I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be valued. Of course, I didn't know value or worth at that time, but that's what I turned into. And so I didn't know where my life would end up. I always knew that there would be something special. And right now, what I've come to realize is that this moment is special, being here with you, Cyrus, and Patrice, and Rich. So you can't get any better than this.
Yeah. And you've, again, been transparent in your book, Love Yourself Happy. You've talked about your journey, and you even posted another picture, sharing on social media, kind of showing us, we've got the figurative transformation of you, but the literal transformation of you as well is something that you've been able to share. How did you get to that place? Because I think it's important as we talk about heart to heart, authenticity is so important. How did you get to that place where you're so authentic and real with yourself?
Well, I think I spent most of my life running from myself, right? So, when you're traumatized as a young person, or any time in your life, it's not something that you want to sit with. And so when I look at that picture, what I see is someone who is running from herself, someone who is trying to stuff down the pain, to numb the pain. And so, but what I always knew, the thing that I always knew, and maybe it was from 7 years old, Cyrus, being, testifying in a courtroom, because I did prosecute the man who abused me. What I realized then is that telling the truth, being honest, being vulnerable, being transparent can help other people. Because telling on him, prosecuting him, we had found out that he had done this to other girls. So I think just always sharing has been who I am, a part of myself. And I think that the more and more all of us can show up that way without those masks, this is, again, how we heal both ourselves and the world.
Segue, talking about healing. We get to see again on social media, taking your walks, sharing that experience. You love being out, you love nature, you love that. How does that help you to kind of start your day kind of with yourself?
It's so funny just talking about nature in general, because I was not into nature as a kid. I mean, when I think about it, I grew up, you know, in Miami, and yeah, there were trees everywhere. But when I moved to California, I suddenly, before I knew it, I was hugging trees. Like my fiance, you know, thinks I'm nuts, but he thinks I'm nuts about lots of things. But, you know, I was, there's something about connecting to the earth. There's something about having that moment for me and God, that stillness, starting the day, being able to hear my thoughts, because I got a million of them going through my mind nonstop. So that moment with myself and with God, with nature, with all, it's really what centers and grounds me for the day. Plus I get some exercise in, so I can have that extra slice of cake.
Yeah. Well, look, knowing you over the years, one of the things you've shared, Shari, is that one of yourself doing a lot of things. One of those was having a book sign store with your own book. You were able to realize that vision, to be able to sign your book, Love Yourself Happy. What does that reflect like? We talked about 2020 being the challenges, but what is that glimmer for you in your life been like to reflect on?
You know, you never think that the things that you've gone through really are going to help people in big ways. And I always knew, like I said, to share my story, and but to actually get it written down, to have traveled what seems like a lifetime to ultimately return back to me, has been one of the most gratifying moments in my life. Being able to put it together in a way that people can connect with it, and it can help, you know, soften edges inside of people, and hopefully inspire them to turn inwards instead of all the stuff that we're all trying to do and trying to connect with and achieve, but to realize that it all just sits within us, and all we have to do is go, oh, here I am, and this is enough, and I'm enough. That it's breathtaking.
Yeah. Last thing I want to ask you about myself, Shari, then I'm going to throw it to Rich here. You know, earlier about the protest. And I should say, full transparency, I have a lot of conversations with Shari, mostly through funny messages that hopefully we'll never share. You're being out there. I have to say, I was surprised how personal you take some of the things that were happening in 2020. But you physically got out there and got involved. You weren't just talking about it online. Why was that? And what is that memory like for you to look at that moment in your life?
You know, I'm trying to keep the show uplifting and happy, and you just keep wanting to make me cry. So, you know, Cyrus, when I mentioned 2020, finding my voice, what I realized is that as a young child, I was seeking love. And then as I realized that the love had to be found within, I spent so much time loving myself that I didn't, and trying to find that love within, that I didn't make room for other people. And in March of 2020, when I sat in my car, the words that came out of my mouth were, thank God for my trauma. And what that meant for me for the first time was that it wasn't just a rational, like everything happens for a reason and I became who I was, but it was a real thank God for my trauma. And in that acceptance of what happened to me, what opened up for me was room to feel others' pain, to recognize, because I think so many of us, when we think about stepping out for other people, we think about what are we going to lose in that? Defending other people, how is that going to affect us? And so for the first time, I was able to know that I am whole, and you can't take anything away from me, and you can't take anything away from you, and we all can stand next to each other and lift each other up, and we will not be lessened in any way. We actually become stronger in that way. So it was like a no-brainer for me, because I started listening, and I didn't want to deny anybody's pain anymore. So when you tell me that you're feeling something, and when a large group of people are telling me that this is happening to me, to them, I didn't want to turn my back on it anymore. I needed to stand with, I needed to recognize, and I needed to acknowledge. And that's where that came from.
Yeah. Well, we definitely appreciate you sharing your heart. Rich, you have a question for Shari?
Yes. So Shari, you were one of the gifts that came to me in 2020, and I'm so grateful that our paths crossed, and here we are.
My brother from another mother.
Exactly. Star twins. My question is, you talk about joy. You're a joy coach, joy magnet. You're all about the joy. But in a year, 2020, that has been so hard for so many people, how do people connect to that joy? Because people are searching for it, and it's one thing to hear, be happy, be joyful. But what's one thing a person could do right now to bring that joy, even 1% higher?
That's a good question. Joy is in the acceptance of this moment. Joy is in the acceptance of who we are. Joy is in the acceptance that we might be sad. Joy is in the acceptance that we might be frustrated or angry. Joy is in this moment of living and breathing. And so I think just tuning in, even just to our breath and knowing that gift, that ignites joy. So finding the small things, those are what, when you put those together, that's what makes an extraordinary, joyful life.
Love it. Love it.
Well, great question, Rich. Do you have a question for Shari?
I loved everything that you just shared with us, and I didn't know some of those things. So thank you, Shari. And it got me to think about a conversation via text that I was having with a couple of my other friends this morning about shame and, the liberating feeling that comes with releasing shame. And I wondered if you could speak to that. We are trying to do this, the three of us, by writing about it and sharing our writing every morning about the shame that we hold, and that by sharing it, we want to release it and be liberated from this. So can you speak a little bit about that?
That's a big one. And I'll be honest, shame is something that I've just recently come into really acknowledging and discovering it. And part of that has been in the acceptance in the gratitude of what happened to me as a child. What I realized, that everyone always mentions shame, and shame came to me when I uncovered that I was ashamed and I felt guilt being on the stand, on the witness stand, and hurting this man who hurt me. He asked me not to speak out, and I did. And so I felt shame that I didn't keep my word, right? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. So I think when I think of shame, I think of acknowledging first, allowing that to come up, what it is that you feel. Like, what are you feeling shame about? And I'll keep saying it again and again. You guys will find out, just in the acknowledgement of that, I think that we release stuff. And in the self-compassion and the kindness with ourselves, being able to sit with it, with our younger selves, and say, hey, I know you feel that way. I hear it. I feel it, and I'm here for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. As mentioned, first of all, I really appreciate all of your questions and this opportunity to share a little bit about myself. And the reason why we're doing these feature segments, just so you all know out there listening and watching with us, is that we don't want to just be a bunch of talking heads talking about things, that are happening in the world. And you're like, well, who the heck are they? And so it's important that you know just a little bit more about who we are. And so we hope that you will tune in every single Wednesday and submit your questions and your topics to us, so we can start discussing and having these tough conversations, having these joyful conversations, having these things that really are going to connect us. And what you're going to come to find out is that we are so much more alike than we are different. And so please come and join us every Wednesday. Stay connected to us. Follow us on social media. And most importantly, take care of your heart and one another's. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, beautiful Heart to Heart fam here with me. We appreciate you all so much. And we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.